It's 23rd of December. What day is today? Tuesday. Tomorrow here in Finland it's the Christmas Eve. Everybody's celebrating. Just wanted to have this live here before everybody winds down and starts to celebrate Christmas and talk about something that's, I believe, on everybody's mind right now. So 2026 is right around the corner, and people usually at this time of the year, they are reviewing their 25 results and setting targets for 26. I just recorded a video yesterday about how I set my targets of what I do with my 26 planning. That was released yesterday, and this live is more of a workshop as far as me showing you what I do. Use if useful, hopefully this helps. It's a little different way of nailing down your targets and maximizing your output. And I wanted to use pen and paper, maybe draw something, keep this super simple. But I want to go back to the time when I was 21 years old. I lived in LA back then, and I had just bought my first ever self-development book from Brian Tracy. And that particular book was basically about visualizing your goals and setting targets and doing everything in your power to achieve those. And that was revolutionary to me. It was an eye-opener, if you will. And as a result, I started approaching my action taking and my annual goal setting very differently. And then when I joined a big corporation, worked for a large company for 10 plus years, it was obviously bread and butter in that environment. So every year we set targets, every 6 months we reviewed them. And then of course my bonus structure was based off of that as well. And I continued with that same structure with my own companies. And even still 4 to 5 years ago, I used to set really concrete targets for next year. I had revenue, I had net profit, I had number of projects. Those three were usually my primary real estate goals. And then I realized that actually didn't serve me too well. Why? Because I was way too outcome driven. You might be different, but that was a problem for me. And not just staring at the end result, but not being able to deal with the losses and failures. Because back then, I've talked about this a lot, I used to think that those failures and those mistakes never applied to me because I worked so hard and I was able to see the big picture and see around the corner. And then when life happened, there was adversity, there were setbacks, I used to lose my mojo. I was like, why the fuck does this happen to me? And it's not possible. And I got mad. I was uncomfortable with the uncomfortable. And I didn't fully understand that there are no failures or mistakes. There are basically just data points that you collect. Nowadays, I look at it completely differently. But the purpose of today's video is basically show you what I do. And so since that didn't work for me, I went back to the drawing board. And basically, how I do it is that I set 2 targets for myself. I put something so far out in the future. This is like my North Star. This is my guiding principle, my signal. And then like the other extreme, what I call regret at 90. So I identify those things that I need to do in life so that when I'm truly out of time, I have 0 regrets. I've been able to live life on my own terms. And then here in the other extreme is basically my daily actions. So I'm giving you an example. So my signal right now in life is 3 things. I look at my kids as my anchor point. I want to be the best possible dad. And if I have a chance to spend time with them, travel with them, I do that. Number 2, I want to live forever. Yes, I know it's not possible, but fitness is one of my passions. I want to optimize my health. I train, I eat well, healthy, and all that stuff. And number 3, business-wise, I want to see what I'm truly capable of, what I can get done in business life. Those are my anchor points. I probably spend 5% of my time nailing those down and thinking about those. I revisit them often, but it's not a daily conversation. I don't need to. That's also what I call the intuition. If you can't listen to your intuition, you need to understand a couple of things. Ask yourself, what feels hard? What am I avoiding? Meaning take fear out of the equation, and then ask yourself the same question again. What are those things that I need to do? If there was no fear involved, what would I be doing in life if I couldn't fail? Usually those are really close to your anchor points, and that's usually your intuition. But then that's 5% of the time. And then 95%, the other extreme, is basically just about winning Tuesdays or Mondays or Wednesdays. How can I execute on a daily basis so that I can win my daily actions. And the hardest part here, and really one of the reasons why I went away from that annual planning where you have like a bunch of line items and it starts to be a very long list of things, because I'm such a big supporter of simplicity in life that every time I see too much stuff, I'm like, okay, how can I delete? How can I simplify? And that's why I'm pretty much also against the annual planning, because it starts to be a very complex list. And many people don't have the capability on a daily basis to simplify and delete and say no. So my everyday starts with the same conversation with myself. What's today's signal? What is relevant today and what is irrelevant? And I identify a couple of actions that I need to do on that given day, on that Tuesday, meaning how do I win Tuesday? I do 1 or 2 things and that's it. Everything else is noise. I say no to it. I delete it. And that's how I simplify. And then when I win enough of those Tuesdays in a row, that takes care of my 1-year planning and my 5-year planning or 10-year planning, because I always get what I deserve. So I don't do any annual planning. I don't have any New Year's resolutions. All I do is I have 2 very extreme anchor points. It's like understanding what does my football field look like before I start throwing the ball. I need to understand how wide and how long it is, so I don't know where I can place the ball. And those are my 5% anchor points, my signals. And then everything else is just at 95% daily execution. Every day starts from 0. If I have been able to carry out, execute, complete the actions that I identified in the morning, then my day was a success. I was able to empty my tank. That's how I do it. This was the live workshop in 6.5 minutes. So any questions? I don't know if you have any, but it's a different way of doing it. And many people could argue, send a counter argument to me saying that, okay, what's wrong with me nailing down my annual profit target for my company? There's nothing wrong with that if that works for you. That's actually how every company does it. That's how my big corporation that I worked for did it too. We had a bunch of high-level targets that then were triggered down to different teams, different individuals. And of course, ultimately, your company wants to have a 30% market share in any given market. Then that triggers down to daily actions, and ultimately, you end up doing the same thing. But I think the problem is that many of those key actions get lost in translation, and there aren't enough competent people in the middle who are able to translate or convert those higher level targets into daily actions that really make sense, meaning seeing the forest, not staring at the trees. So that's how I do it. As I said, use if useful. Has really served me super well. And this year, professionally, has been maybe one of the hardest in my life. And sometimes even that daily cycle, like starting in the morning and just keep going until the end of the day, is too long. Sometimes you have to shorten that. You shrink the timeline even further, and that's how you simplify. Okay, how do I survive the next hour, next 2 hours when there's a lot of headwind, a lot of adversity? So I think it has served me super well, and I think it's a concept that could be very useful for you guys as well if you want to just try it out. Super simple, like pretty much everything that goes on in my life nowadays. What else? That's really all I wanted to talk about today. I welcome any questions if there's anybody. Right now, I don't know if there's anybody online, but I'm going to stay here for a little bit. Write 2026 plan on my piece of paper. So there were 2 extremes, no text. In the future, I'm probably going to have these similar live workshops after every longer YouTube video I've recorded, just to recap it, give people a different chance or a new chance to maybe see the same thing in a little different format, and try to have more often my live sessions as well. How do you stick to your plan without breaking your rules? Yeah, it's a good question. How do I stick to my plan? So without breaking my rules. So number one, I don't really have any rules per se. My only rule is to have that conversation with me every day and ask myself, what needs to be done today. Out of all of these 54 items that are on my plate, what's relevant? And maybe you're referring to my 3 anchor points that I mentioned in the beginning. My kids, my health, and my business. How do I really know which one is more relevant or important today? What do I prioritize? So as an example, if both of my kids are home and I identify an opportunity to spend time with them, like today was a good example. So it's a day before Christmas. Tomorrow, 24th, is really the main Christmas day here. And I knew that both of my kids would be home. They have no work, they have no school. And I scheduled a longer lunch session with both of them. For the most part, they just want to be by themselves or hang out with their buddies and friends and whatnot. But I asked if they wanted to join me for a longer lunch during the day. So I came to the office in the morning, then I had lunch with my kids. I came back here, it's 5:30 p.m. But I don't really have any rules other than just doing what's relevant for any given day. But really the hardest part for me, in my opinion, is not really to understand how to work hard, but how to know what to do. Because sometimes we are so blind to our own previous ways of working that we don't really understand what needs to be done today. I'll give you an example. So my company, my new business, this coaching thing and education thing that I do, part of that is my YouTube content. I'm like, okay, I've had a tough year with my leads and my conversions. What do I need to do? I'm overwhelmed every morning. Not every morning, but those mornings when I am, my feelings go up and down too. I'm like, okay, so then I go back to the very basics. Business is always about creating attention, meaning you market, then you convert the attention, that's sales, and then you deliver that attention. I'm like, okay, don't worry about sales or delivery if you don't have enough attention. I wake up in the morning, I'm like, okay, so I want to empty my tank at the end of the day. I want to see what I'm truly capable of business-wise. That means that I first need to understand what's the phase that I'm in with my business. And right now I'm in the phase of creating attention. I don't have enough attention so that I could be talking about a meaningful business yet. The size is not there. So I need to put all my eggs in that basket when it comes to creating attention. And then I'm like, okay, so how do I create attention? I've chosen to create content. So the more shorts I cut, the more long form videos I create and make, and the more lives I have, that right now is creating attention. And we can have a conversation whether that works or not. It's a different ball game and how I can be better at that. But that's how I look at it. So high level, nothing is working. I'm overwhelmed. There's this fire, there's that. And I'm like, okay, out of all of these things, what needs to be done? And that really is the hardest part because like 2026 planning, like everything else, people are usually really good at adding stuff. There's a new person, there's a new process, there's a new rule, there are new guidelines to everything because that feels safe. Deleting feels really dangerous because you don't know what happens when you get rid of stuff. But ultimately you want to be light on your feet so that you can execute. It hasn't been until, 4 or 5 years ago when I really started to understand what saying no means. This is a really long answer to your question. Hopefully I was able to deliver. But my only concern of breaking the rule to me would be the same as not seeing what's relevant. Doing what I think is important because I might have fears, I might have insecurities, I might have shortcomings that stop me from doing the right thing. How do I know what the right action looks like? I usually want to ask myself, what am I avoiding? What feels hard? In the beginning, it was getting in front of the camera, creating content, telling people that I did something that I never thought I would do. And then I knew that, okay, I'm avoiding this thing. It's hard for me. Therefore, the answer is probably right there. Okay, you could now ask another question for me, what feels hard right now? I don't know. Maybe asking for help. Asking for help. I'm such a lonely rider when it comes to business. I've been able to grow my companies up to 5 million in annual revenue just doing it all by myself up until this point with all of my companies. That's really been my ceiling. I've used outside help, contractors and whatnot, but my challenge has been asking for help. Maybe you could say that I didn't have the right people in my corner, not the right competencies or the skill set, maybe so. My problem is to stick to my plans, gym being present, accomplished plan routines. I'm working on it, but sadly I see lack of consistency through my own promise and actions. Ask yourself this. Well, to me, consistency is all about motivation. Motivation equals deprivation. In the beginning, Chris Williamson, I don't know if you follow him. If you don't, I strongly suggest. He's a great guy, originally from the UK. And he talks about this motivation, how it's like this rocket ship. You know how you launch a rocket ship? You need a lot of energy to get it off the ground first. But then once you are halfway there, different engines kick in. Then you need a different source of energy to take you to the orbit. And I think getting something done in life is the same thing. That use whatever you have in the beginning. I don't care. I mean, maybe I was bullied, maybe I was insecure because of this, or maybe whatever the reason is, I want to prove everybody wrong. I have a chip on my shoulder. Use whatever you have to get started. But I think you have to be willing to change your fuel source halfway there, because whatever you had in the beginning might not serve you too well when you're approaching the so-called end stage of your life. To your point about sticking to your plan, ask yourself, do I want this badly enough? Are you doing the right thing? Because change in life is something that, that's how I look at it. We change when the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of change, if you think about it. I'm not talking about you specifically, but if you talk about any change in life, let's say somebody is smoking, they want to quit. Like, okay, in that person's mind, the change is more painful than the pain of staying the same because there haven't been any consequences yet. What happens when that person goes to see a doctor and the doctor says, hey, you have lung cancer. I don't think you have more than a couple of years to live if you don't quit. What happens? Most guys, girls, they quit. Because all of a sudden the pain of staying the same, pain of smoking grew exponentially. Because if you keep doing what you do, you're gonna die. So all of a sudden you have the willpower. If we wanna get healthier, I always try to create deprivation, like try to picture myself. Okay, so I'll give you an example from my life. I don't drink coffee, but I've had this bad habit of drinking some of these like energy boosters, like these pre-workout drinks. I used to have one in the morning and I had one in the afternoon. I've had this habit for maybe 1 or 2 years now. And I noticed that there's too much caffeine for my system. Then I simply asked the question for myself that, okay, even though there haven't been any consequences, I'm like, okay, am I better off if I cut my caffeine intake in half? Just have one drink in the morning just to get my day kick started and have nothing in the afternoon. And the answer was absolutely. Am I going to live longer if I don't have that much caffeine? Most likely, because when I get older, maybe it has an impact on my blood pressure. That goes higher. So higher blood pressure puts extra stress on my heart, on my system overall. It's not good for me. Maybe I can gain a year or 5 by doing that. Maybe not, but at least I increase my chances of living longer, because longevity is one of my ultimate goals, which I mentioned in the beginning. It's my anchor point, my signal. Then I'm like, okay, what's going to happen if I all of a sudden cut my caffeine intake in half? I'm going to start having headaches. Some people report depression. I'm like, okay, interesting to see what happens. I did this maybe 7 days ago. The first 4 or 5 days, I had a headache in the afternoon. I felt really bad, but then it went away. Now I feel so much better. I'm more calm, and I don't usually have mood swings, but I feel that I'm more present, I'm more calm, I'm more peaceful. So far so good. I'm not gonna go back. I haven't really had any temptations. I don't know what happens when I'm like super dead tired if I travel or something. But I think that's how I look at it myself, that okay, if I go to the gym, is it gonna take me closer or further away from my goal? No matter how hard it is, because ultimately if the motivation is high enough, if we want it badly enough, we find a way. Again, long answer, maybe that's something that you could look into as far as why you can't stick to your plan. Is that something you're gonna regret at 90 if you now don't exercise? What's the reason for your exercise? I mean, why do you go to the gym? Why do you wanna be healthy? Because of, I don't know, longevity reasons, or the way you look, or to get girls or guys, or whatever the thing is. You mentioned ask for help. Do you mean seeking psychological help, or asking people who are doing what I want to do or who are already where I want to be? Yeah. Good question. Of course, I know. What I mean by that is having more people in my corner who would do the things that don't add that much value that I do anyhow. I'll give you an example. I outsource a lot already. I say no. I have a person who cleans my house and does not my laundry, but like some of that overall household maintenance stuff. It helps me a lot. I could use more of that. I could maybe outsource some of my grocery shopping or my cooking or whatnot, so that I could go even deeper into that mode of understanding what moves the ball forward the most, getting better, and just focusing on one thing. Because if we divide our 100% attention into 4 or 5 different buckets, if our 3 to 4 hour deep work session gets interrupted all the time, when your phone is ringing, you answer emails, or you have to load the laundry machine or hang laundry or do whatever you want, it's like you never get stuff done. I just spent a month in Spain in November and December. The reason why I did that was that I identified, out of these 3 things, business has been my number 1 priority lately. My kids are older. My fitness is on autopilot, so I'm all in when it comes to business. So I said no to everything else. I knew that back home I have lots of distractions. There's also positive distractions. But I know my mind so well that sometimes I need to say no to everything else and put myself in a position to succeed. And during that 1 month, a little over a month, I was able to basically grow my total length of viewership, or whatever you want to call it, by 27%. My comments went up by 2x. My other metrics went up by 2x. I was able to focus. And I'm going to do it again starting January 7th, another month of just me, work, eat, train, sleep, nothing else. Because that's how I identify what needs to be done. So to your question about asking for help, maybe it's a combination of just doing one thing, saying even more ruthlessly no and deleting, or outsourcing some of the so-called trivial tasks that don't cost me much, that are under my target hourly rate, giving it to somebody else so that I can go deeper into that thing that really means a lot to me. It's been a long journey, but of course psychological help too. I'm a big believer in coaching and mentorship. When I had my divorce and my breakup after that, I went to see a couple of therapists. I think it was very useful. I have nothing against that. To me, it's coaching. You hire a personal trainer, you hire a mental coach or a therapist. To me, it's all about identifying or understanding how you can get better. But good questions. Appreciate them. Any other ones? Any comments about my planning? Did this make sense? Whichever way. I don't know how to show this because you know what I mean. Any plans for Christmas? What part of the world are you guys in? US? Yeah, so it's that time of the year. So we talked about 26 planning and how I introduced a little different way of setting your targets or redefining success, so to say. And I also mentioned that I try to have these lives maybe shorter, more about one topic more often after every long form YouTube video, so that I would introduce another way of explaining the same thing and go from there. Other than that, I have no plans, but just to create attention. What type of business do you do, if mind to ask? I'm Switzerland now. I was living in Philly for 13 years. Yeah, I have this, I've had several businesses. I've been a full-time entrepreneur for 15, 16 years. I started when I lived in San Diego. I started my real estate company from scratch. Then we moved back to Europe. I started another one here. And now what I call my fourth reset, third one as a full-time entrepreneur starting from scratch, different country, different industry, completely different business, is this coaching business. So a year and a half ago, this is why I'm here, so to say. A year and a half ago, I was at a point where 3.5 years ago, I broke up with my girlfriend. I got divorced 9 years ago, then I had a 5-year relationship, and that ended poorly. That was a very traumatic relationship. After that, I felt that I had to reset my life. And that's all I've been doing basically my whole life. I moved to the US for the first time when I was 19 with nothing. And I've always been the person who puts myself out of my comfort zone. And I've never shied away from a full-blown reset. I actually look forward to that stuff because I want to see what I can truly put together if I'm good enough, so to say. I want to face adversity. I'm a masochist in that sense. And a year and a half ago, a little over a year and a half ago, a year and 9 months ago, I asked myself, okay, what is it I want to do now? Real estate was still fun, but market really took a nosedive, and I had managed my business in a way where I had very little help. And again, I had done it just to see if I can pull it off because everybody told me that I can't. So I wanted to see if I could be the anomaly, the special snowflake, so to say. And then I was like, okay, I want to pivot. I want to still keep doing real estate, but selectively, mostly my rentals. And my primary focus is going to be on something else. And then I asked myself again that famous question, okay, what is that one thing that I would be doing if I couldn't fail? And is that also the thing that I would be regretting at 90 if I didn't do it now? And the answer was yes. And that thing was helping others, starting a so-called international coaching business, education business. I have clients now, mostly in the US and Canada. And I started creating content back then. I was not on social media in any way. And then I just started all of a sudden, like overnight from scratch, and started doing a lot of volume. So that's the business I refer to now. But my background is in real estate. And then I have a telecommunications corporate job for 10, 11 years. I was involved in my brother's business, in commercial truck business, where I was the chairman, and that was sold to a venture capitalist 8, 9 years ago. So I've been part of different companies. And now this last reset that I did myself was basically my passion project. I wanted to see if I could build a personal brand of some kind, if I could help others by talking about my experiences as an entrepreneur, as a father of 2, as somebody who got divorced, as somebody who has lived in multiple countries and done many hard things. So I felt that I could help people, and I had a lot of passion to see if I could pull that off. So that's why I'm here. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done, but also the most fun at the same time. And I'm a big believer that these are the golden years, even though we always look back and say those were the golden years. But I think we should actually pause, reflect, and understand that the present moment right now is actually the best time of your life. I don't think you would be willing to trade that for anything, no matter what the money is involved. And I try to appreciate every opportunity and every hardship and every piece of adversity that comes my way. Long answer, sorry. I have this bad habit of providing long answers. I like talking. I need to learn how to be more brief. It's actually a funny thing. When I don't know if any of you guys are content creators, but it's been a long journey for me to learn how to be precise, short, simple, effective. Because I have this tendency of explaining things too much. These lives, I give myself a chance to just be all over the place. But when I have a 3 to 10 minute or 12-minute YouTube video, I need to really make sure that I just nail the relevant points and I don't start talking about irrelevant stuff, especially in the beginning when you don't have a large audience and when people don't know really you exist. So there's really no leeway. There's no room for error in that sense. And that's why I'm learning that. So it's probably my biggest focus point for the coming couple of months, I would say. But volume takes care of that. When you do more, you put in the reps, you put in the volume, you get better. It's like somebody was mentioning a gym. You go to the gym, you want to get better at squatting. What do? You don't read books. You can watch a few videos, sure, but then you just have to get under the bar and start squatting because there's nothing that replaces that. You want to become a basketball player, you learn that by playing basketball. If you want to be good at creating YouTube videos, well, guess what? What do? You face the camera, you start recording, you make plenty of mistakes. Just getting better comes down to mindset. Everything is in our mind. I'm just trying to find resources that point me to small actions. We can be there. Yeah, it's all about getting better. And how do you know what to do? And that's really the hard part, because many people are overwhelmed. There's just so much stuff on our plate that the number one task always is to just see the big picture and see, okay, hey, what needs to happen today? What's that one thing that moves the ball forward the most? And I think the most successful people in life, I'm not talking about money only, are the ones who are exceptionally good at focusing on signal, separating signal from noise. There are plenty of clips, there's plenty of material about Steve Jobs. Everybody talks about Steve Jobs, and I don't know what kind of an individual he was. I have no comment, but I'm a firm believer, based on what I have heard and understood, that he was really good at separating signal from noise. Guess how many items he had on his plate every morning? He knew what to do, and he was able to say no. He was able to say no, delete everything else. Ruthless. He was probably socially pretty awkward, a pretty difficult guy to be around. He was willing to walk away from any conversation. If people gave him bullshit, it's like, this is a waste of my time, I'm gonna get the fuck away. And I think, again, based on other people's reports and comments, Elon Musk is probably more like that. Otherwise he wouldn't be able, I don't comment on the person or his political agenda, I don't care. I'm just looking at the results. There's no way you can manage several multi-billion-dollar companies successfully unless you are exceptionally good at understanding what's relevant and what's irrelevant. And that's the thing. People just focus their whole lives on irrelevant stuff and think that they are actually working really hard when what they do is just complete bullshit. But in order for you to do that, you also need to get really good at saying no. Really good at saying no, because what was hard for me was that even though I didn't really think about it, but I kind of felt that I was responsible for other people's feelings. But yeah, it's just all about getting better. Just how can I take action to get better? A little better every day. But how to get better? Because I could be, as an example, if I want to be better or create more attention on YouTube, I think it's irrelevant for me to spend thousands of dollars or euros on lighting and better office. I see, saying that, that's gonna fix my problem. That would be an irrelevant point. There comes a point maybe if I'm good enough, if I'm able to grow, where I need to do that. But this is not the time. That would be noise right now. Signal would be to do more volume, figure out a way how we can ramp up my production even more, deliver more value, be more precise, be more simple, and talk to the audience the way they want me to talk to them, and solve the problems that they want to get solved, that they want to solve for themselves. That's the only thing that would matter. It has nothing to do with what kind of a whiteboard I have, what kind of markers I use. I could buy the fanciest markers where the ink is better, or the best and brightest whiteboard, or the latest iPhone, or have 3 of these iPhones. No, I don't think that would matter. That would be noise. There comes a time, but that time is right now. That would also make me better, or my production, my setup better, but it wouldn't be the right action. So I think that's really important. Any other good questions? Any questions? Questions are always good. I enjoy these conversations. That's why I'm here. I had a 1-week break, and before that maybe a 2-week break. I did more of these lives when I was in Spain, and I need to ramp these up again. But it's hard when you're by yourself lecturing. Of course, then there's a recording that gets saved, and that's always a good thing. But the fun part is to talk to people. It's just, I just enjoy it. It's great. If you're going to help somebody, that's ultimately, sounds naive and sounds silly, but that's why I'm here. You pass, I think this is like, if you think about it, if you think about your life, money and knowledge is no different. You were born naked, alone, and you're going to die the same way. No matter how much money you have, you can't take any of that with you. So why not, so with money, if that's true, why not figure out a way how you can maybe donate that, give that back, or make sure that your kids take care of it, or they have a runway with that. The same way with knowledge and skills. If you have been able to accumulate a lot of skills, you know a lot of stuff, why wouldn't you pass that on to other people? I'm not saying I'm smart, or I'm not saying I have a lot of knowledge. What I do know is that I've done a lot of stuff. I've been able to collect a lot of epic stories, and maybe those stories help somebody else. So that's how I look at it. So I want to talk about that. Plus, of course, I enjoy doing it. I enjoy helping people. And then I can kill 3 birds with 1 stone, if you will, if I can then turn this into a business as well at the same time. That would be awesome. But time will tell. This is like coming back to that 2026 plan. I don't need to worry about my targets for next year or for the next 5 years if I just win enough Tuesdays. You know what I mean? If I can identify what the winning action is for this particular day, I can say no to everything else, and I can empty my tank, and I can complete that action, and I do enough of those days in a row, I always get what I deserve. I don't need to put together a 2026 plan. I get what I deserve. If I thought that I would be making, I don't know, $10 million next year, and I don't, I'm like, okay, either my plan was way too aggressive compared to my skill set, or I wasn't able to just get better fast enough. It's all about just getting better. It's all about just doing the right things. Then one might say that, okay, if you don't have an aggressive enough target, you don't work hard enough on yourself. If the only goal is just to get better. That's true. But I still think that the simplicity I get by being able to say no, identify what signal looks like on any given day, outweighs it's more important in my opinion than setting a super aggressive goal and then try to work your way backwards, kind of like figuring out what the right actions are. I'd much rather start with the right actions. And then because then you are ultimately not staring at the outcome. Your success is the same as being able to do what you were supposed to do. And I think that's a much better way to live. I'm at least happier that way. If you see what I'm trying to say. There's no right or wrong. It's just what's right for you. That's how I look at it. Anyhow, I appreciate the comments all the time. I want to probably call it a day now. And I'm going to announce I don't know when I'm going to have my next live, maybe in a couple of days, 2-3 days, depending on when my next video comes out. Probably not tomorrow, but 25th I'm trying. And then we'll go from there. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, happy New Year's to everybody. I'm going to talk to you again soon. And if you like the content, do me a favor and hit that subscribe and like button. That would mean a lot to me. Thank you. Okay, bye.